Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of People Talk with Paul Lawrence. It is Sunday, the 28th of June, and I'm really pleased to be doing the show again. Those of you who know, we've been doing these shows since more or less since we began COVID. I guess it was about a week or two after COVID that I began with the show. And I've been managed to keep it going ever since. Look, you know, we've covered a lot of topics over the past few weeks and months. And I think today, the topic we're going to cover is no less important than any of the ones we've done before. And, you know, we've touched on it a couple of times in and around other shows that we've done. But I think today we really want to give it a bit more of a deep dive. And that's a topic around Black business. Anyone who knows anything about me will know that I do, you know, a little business called justtickets.com, which has been running for 3 years now. And I've spent my time working in industry for a variety of organizations, big and small. So business is something which is very close to my heart. In saying that, I can also say that it's not just business being close to my heart, but Black businesses being close to my heart. And I don't feel any reluctance in saying that. And hopefully as the show goes on, I'll be able to explain more, because I know there are some people who think, you know, well, why this emphasis on Black business? Why is it Black business? You know, you're in a 97% white country, you know, you should just, you know, shop where you can. And I'm going to try and challenge that today. And I'm hoping that my guest today will also help me to challenge that. So let's begin, as we normally do, with some introductions. Just for everybody who's out there, you're all on mute right now, except for Angie. Angie's not on mute, and Katrina, you're not on mute, but if you're going to speak, make sure you come off mute first. Angie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you very much for having me here, Paul. And I have to say, what you've been doing has been amazing. And thank you for inviting me today. I'm Angela Clarke, and I'm the founder and CEO of Teams. We've just rebranded to Teams Global because we are going global, and we are a consortium of Black business owners.
Thank you, Angie. Katrina?
Thank you for having me, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is, of course, Katrina Douglas. I'm a launch strategist. Really been launching products, services, businesses for the past 14 years, and now do that solely in my business, thelaunchstrategist.com, where I help people really build legacy-driven businesses with a firm foundation that actually stand the test of time. So that's what I do. Yeah, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking to you all today.
Thank you, Katrina. Yvonne, but you're on mute.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Witter. I set up Ampod Limited around 2000, and now I'm working freelance. I've been working with small business development, taking a simple idea and making it into a credible business. I've worked with people who want to grow their business, and I've worked with over 3,000 businesses, not just here, but in parts of Africa, Malawi, Ghana, Cameroon, various places, and also in the Caribbean. And I also write training programs for startups and business, you know, in general. So yes, I'm steeped in this thing, and I work across the third sector too, for capacity building, social enterprise.
Thanks, Yvonne. And last but not least, the other gentleman on the call today, and I'm going to smile when I say this, Dr. Carlton Brown. Take yourself off mute.
Thanks, Paul, and thank you for inviting me today. As you said, my name is Dr. Carlton Brown. I run a company called Aspire Consultancy. So I work with SMEs, and I have done for the past 17 years. And my background is around supporting SMEs in terms of their growth and their strategies and how they can achieve their particular outcomes. So that's what I do. But in addition to that, I'm also the founder of a business called Marshall and Brown. Now, Marshall and Brown are the purveyors of what I call the finest of Jamaican fare. So we do things. We do things like Jamaican rum cakes. We do a range called the Jerk House range of sauces, and we do a Marshall and Brown range of chocolates, which are artisan chocolates, which are both vegan and non-vegan. Of course, used with Appleton rum, which is a Jamaican-based rum. And shortly, we'll be introducing Blue Mountain coffee into the UK.
Oh yes,
amazing.
All right, so that's me.
Yeah,
We
and
need the
I
coffee.
can tell you, Carlton, if you can get some Jamaican drinking chocolate as well,
Oh, please.
yeah,
Yes.
put your branding on it and make it look the way I know your
Please.
stuff look. I've seen your stuff; it looks
Yes.
absolutely awesome. But
Yeah.
there's a massive, massive market here for that sort of stuff. But look, we digress.
Okay.
We're here in the UK, and I guess what we want to start and kick off and talk about is what's your general feeling? You know, you're all positioned differently. What's your general feeling about the state of Black business right now in the UK? What would you say? What would you say the state is? Good, bad, growing, developing, stalled? What? Talk to me.
I think, Paul, there is a state of consciousness, right? But I think as an African Caribbean diaspora, we've always been entrepreneurial. I don't think that's ever changed. I think in terms of our outlook. However, I think what was historical was that we were very disconnected and not connected. And I think there's this wave and a mindset shift where strategically we are now wanting to galvanize even more. But so there's a very vibrant entrepreneurial spirit within the African and Caribbean diaspora today. It has been for a while, but I think we're just becoming more aware and our consciousness has been raised significantly. So that's my view on it.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing more of is this openness to collaboration. I think in times past, we were very siloed. And like you said, Dr. Carlton, we have always been entrepreneurial. It's almost like we've had to think, be in, you know, had to have this kind of ingenuity and kind of go for it. So we've always had that mentality. I think the issue in the past has been being in silos, but I see this collaboration that is beautiful that's coming and this commitment to increased excellence that we're seeing in a new kind of way, which is amazing to see.
Angie, I know you're part of team, and when I hear the word collaboration and working together, that's certainly what I know team is all about. Tell us a little bit about team and how you see that feeding into the collaboration and the growth that both Carlton and Katrina spoke about.
Yes, I think that, well, Teams Global is a place where, as a business startup, you can come and join us. We have a host of different services that will help that business grow. And interestingly, we also have a large group of people that are at the top end who are very established. So with people now coming to the decision, and in some cases forced to do that, they're now ready to enlighten their journey by us. So I see that there is an opportunity of collaboration. We've got one particular business, I have to show this. They've been absolutely amazing. Promote. This is in single water, and 4 strangers came into team and came together, creating a business called London Cosmopolitan Drinks. And this is their first product, and that is doing so well. So there is always room for collaboration, always room for collaboration. And that's what I work with people that are happy to come on board and recognize that they can do events together, services together, offer discounts. All that has to take place. So that's what we do.
Yvonne,
I'm encouraged by the international marketplace, frankly, because I've worked in so many different countries, and I'm very encouraged and stimulated by the fact that people are seeing less borders and not limiting themselves. So for me, it's just a marvelous thing to see. And as everyone said, yeah, it's kind of buoyant. People are looking to collaborate, and it's exciting times ahead, I have to say.
Well, I want to drill down a little bit more on what you just mentioned, Yvonne, and because of your experience working across borders, because one of the things that comes up very, very often from both sides, both as a supplier and a buyer of Black services, is that, look, we're in the UK, there's only 3% of us. It's hard. It's a hard market. You know, if you label yourself a Black business, you know, you've already, quote unquote, excluded 97% of the population. But isn't there a great opportunity in what you just said about the international borders and about our ability to trade with the Caribbean, with Africa, whether it's an online service or even a physical service, because it's so much better? Isn't there a massive opportunity in that for our Black businesses to expand into?
There's an opportunity for people to source products to sell to the wider market here, one. So you don't have to limit yourself to selling to Do you know what I mean? So coffee. I mean, Jamaica has, you know, the best coffee in the world.
Yeah.
So, do you understand? So you can sell that to anybody. Trust me. Do you know what I mean? So that's just one product. So, you know, so we're not limited in that regard. You know, so it's all about people collaborating, as Angela said, and her business model probably would facilitate that really well. You know, we need also to control our food distribution. We've got other people supplying our food, which makes it difficult for our people in the UK to run their successful food business, because they have to sell it dearer, and we live here, so we know no doubt they're paying more rent than the man next door anyway. You know, so I think the scope for international trade is huge at the moment.
I just want to ask you a question. You work a lot with startups, yeah? What are the sort of challenges that entrepreneurial young Black person trying to get us kicker? What are the sort of challenges they face, and how can they find help to get over these things?
Sorry, you addressing that question to me, Paul?
No, it's Katrina, actually.
Katrina.
Oh, to me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think one is experience. So I think that it's important to get mentored, have coaches, have support, people that have gone there before you. I really believe in this thing of the older generations teaching the younger. And I know sometimes we have this culture where we think that we know it all, but I think it's super important that you are teachable. I think that we're also in this culture where it's all about vanity metrics and Instagram followers. And what we have to understand is that the number of followers doesn't equate to your bottom line. And actually, you can have a very low number of followers, but have a very lucrative business. So it's teaching them to focus on the right things at the beginning and laying a foundation for long-term success. Because what I see is when a lot of young people or people start up, it's a very kind of short-sighted view of business. And I always say, you start small, but you think big. And so you have to build your business in a way that is going to stand the test of time. And the way you do that is very different to how you have a business that is just going to be around for a couple of years, which is why the failure rate is so high, because actually we're not building for the long term. So it's things like processes that aren't fancy or glamorous. You know, it's about having a sustainable business model. It's about having a business that you can scale. All of these things that are not glamorous and you don't see on Instagram or all of those places. So it's actually for us that have had, you know, many years experience of business, who have had many failures as well as successes, actually saying, you know, this is how we do it properly. And it takes you much longer. And we have to get past this 6 figures in 6 months type of mentality. You know, we have to get past it, because if you're going to build something that is sustainable, you're going to be grafting for a while, and it's going to take you a little while before you see. And it's, you know, not being discouraged by that, but that's the reality. And we have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth about this entrepreneurial journey. So yeah.
And I guess this next question is for anyone who wants to pitch in, because, you know, we hear, and you're quite right, of course, it's about the hard graft. You know, when I was being taught about business back before most of you were born, we were talking about things like, well, you know, you might take 5 years before you see your first profit. You know, you have to really do a lot of investing and so on. But right now where we are is that, and I don't know if this is the right word to use, I feel as if Black businesses, especially small, we're being forced to compete. And we're being forced to compete. I don't know if that's right, but we always find ourselves slightly on the back foot. And so one of the most constant complaints, and you touched on about process, and that process leaks out into complaints. Yeah, we're just not handling things right. You know, Dr. Carlton, when I looked at your product, and I looked at it the first time I saw it, it tastes good. It just looked good. It tastes good. A lot of good branding work. Where did you get the inspiration to do that much research to get it right? Because I think it's definitely right.
Okay, Paul, I'm just going to go back a stage for a second, just pick up on a point from Katrina, and then I'll address that particular question. In terms of startups, there was a study done by Sage a while ago which said that 50% of businesses, startups, will fail within the first 5 years.
Yeah.
So, but what you've got to understand, what's the underpinning reasons for that? What are the things that enable that to happen? So there are several things. One is a lack of strategy, a lack of planning, lack of marketing, lack of finance. So these are some of the, strategic thinking. Lack of a mentor was another one of those things. So if you looked at the top 10 things of why businesses fail, and this is very generic. This is across the piece. This is not specific to Black businesses or any other businesses specifically, but business failure rates in general. So that's the first thing. So and so quite often, going back to Katrina's point, this instant gratification thing, all right? I want to be the 100K in 6 months scenario. It doesn't work. It can do if you're very lucky. But in truth, it's about strategy and planning, doing your research. Going on to your point now, Paul. I spent the best part of 18 months doing the research to develop brands, products, supply chains, understanding what the market was saying. What are the consumers looking for? What do they like? What they don't like? What are my competitions like? What's the competitors like? Because you're not only competing in the general market, you're competing against someone else who's selling your same product or service. I think it was Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, if you're gonna go into battle, because that's what business is, it's a battle, you're competing.
Yeah.
You must have a strategy and you must have a plan. So we spend a lot of time researching the market, understanding who buys cakes, for example, who buys sauces. We understood, for example, that Jamaica had when I was doing my research, had about 4.5 million visitors a year, tourists. But then you think about Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, etc., Trinidad, they all have visitors. So people are getting used internationally to different flavors, different foods. And they're looking for that authentic experience to relive what they previously had.
Yeah.
So the market, when you look at a market, the market shouldn't just be homogenized and just think it's just one person or one sector.
Yeah.
The market is the market. And if you want to grow a successful business, look at the market in its entirety. That's my view.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying there. And I think we have to also recognize that if you put a plan, recognize that it's going to evolve. You've got to keep your eye on what is going on and using the structures of your pestles, or I'm guessing that you all are aware of the pestle and your SWOT analysis to keep yourself going and recognize that you're going to have to always keep going back to that plan. You've got to evolve. Otherwise, you will come to standstill.
I'd like to say that I really want to say this, and I hope people listening take this on board. There is no elevator to success. No. There isn't. And anybody that tells you that you can make 6 figures in 3 weeks or whatever it is, it's not true. It really isn't true. If you're building a sustainable business, it takes time. And when you make some money, extra money, it's not an opportunity to buy some new shoes. It's not. It really isn't. Yeah. When you make some money, it's not an opportunity to go and buy a Lexus. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Katrina and Carlton talked about building the infrastructure for your business. That's what you spend the money on.
That's right.
You spend the money on your processes so that when you're ready to scale up, as Katrina said, you've got the systems in place.
Yes.
There is no elevator.
Yeah.
Paul, just to pick up on a point from you, Paul, sorry. You said about our customer service. I mean, it's a bit of a standing joke within our community that you go to a Caribbean restaurant or takeaway and we always say, oh, the service is terrible. We don't always get the service we want. I don't subscribe to that. But my mum said we take fun and make joke, right? So we take these things and we make them, but it becomes a stereotype. Now, my cakes come from Jamaica. My sauces come from Jamaica. And some of the factories there produce the most, they are working to world-class standards. They have international accreditations. So let's not lose sight. There are businesses out there that deliver a fantastic service. But quite often, we are so quick to denigrate our own, but we'll forgive others willingly.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
I know you want to talk about this.
Yeah, this is my pet thing. I've even written an academic paper on customer service in our community, but I won't bore you all with all of that. But I want the listeners to have some compassion though for our small businesses. You know, the ones where you go in and she's on her phone and you're asking for that item and she's, will you say again? And you repeat yourself and all this kind of thing. and eventually you get served. I want to just bring some compassion to that conversation. When I was doing the research for this paper, I went into these cook shops, and when I was getting this attitude, if you like, I used to ask them, "Are you all right? How's today going?" Sometimes she says she's hungry. All kind of different problems. And I was like, "You're hungry, you can't eat." You point to the camera, the security camera. "No, sir, we can't eat until him say we can get some food." You know, and sometimes these people working in these places, their papers are not really straight. Let's be honest. The employer isn't treating them nice. And so they're at work and they're really, really distressed for many, many reasons. So I'm not saying, you know, it's an excuse, but sometimes I think if we just go in probably with a different attitude ourselves, rather than thinking that we're in Marks and Spencer's or we're in John Lewis, just accept where we are and kind of be nice and maybe just be a bit more jovial, even ourselves, because I can imagine many of us going to those shops expecting, you know, to be served in a particular way. And so we come with attitude, probably even as customers. But just remember, the people working behind the counter, they're having their own distress, and they're often not treated well, as they're low paid workers, for one, you know, and we all know how essential workers are treated in this country, and it's no different sometimes in our own community business. So I just wanted to say that.
I'd add 2 points to that. Yeah, in terms of that. So you mentioned Marks and Spencer's and you mentioned John Lewis, 2 great examples of what I consider decent to excellent customer service.
Yeah.
However, those 2 companies have been alive forever. They have had decades of getting it wrong, checking, getting it wrong again, checking, getting it wrong again, and then finally ironing it out. Yeah, to get to the stage of where you get the Marks and Spencers, you get the John Lewis's of this world, and having whole
departments to deal with it.
Exactly. When they were doing that, lots of companies came and went.
Yes.
So that's number one. Number 2, the other thing I'd like to point out about that is about the expectation from the customer. So I remember, and I know many of you will remember, when Air Jamaica used to fly to the UK, and you know, all the yardies, don't hate me at once, come from Spanish Town, so I can't handle that. But I remember the scenes at Heathrow Airport where they were flying, and the expectation from the customers, it was, well, why can't you take the extra luggage?
But luggage.
Not as bad as beer. Yeah. How you mean the gate lock? We're only 50 minutes late. Yeah. So what we were doing, we were having conversations with Air Jamaica, which we could never have with British Airways.
Never.
Yeah.
We could never have it with American Airlines.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know, the reality of the matter is, the customer service desks weren't run by Air Jamaica. It was probably by Swissport or someone like that. And it was totally foreign to them. But we saw the title Air Jamaica. And I'm just using that as an example of how sometimes when we think, oh, but you know, it's Yvonne's business, it's Carlton's business. So, you know, do we have to turn up on time? Of course you have to turn up on time.
Yes.
Do we have to be polite to Yvonne's staff? Of course you have to be polite.
Exactly.
So it's a two-way relationship. And I will never say that businesses should get off because they don't provide good service and they don't have good, but is the buyer-seller relationship is a two-way relationship.
Exactly.
You know, about how we approach people and how we speak to people about that. But I wanna drift a little bit on to one of the current topics that we're talking about today. Yeah, and one of the things that I want to talk about is about how our community can help to develop these fledgling businesses and even some businesses that are 4 or 5 years in. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about boycott these people, you know, spend £1 here and they get that. And look, I made a video yesterday where I talked about my views about it. And where my view is very, very strongly is that our first port of call is to support our own. And I'm going to be crystal clear. I'm not suggesting that we don't eat at Sainsbury's, we don't go to Tesco's, we don't do any of those things. What I am saying is where there's an opportunity to keep your money in the community, you do so.
Yeah.
The problem is you're all nodding in agreement. So I don't even have someone to say otherwise, and that's going to be a problem. But talk to me about your experience, about how that plays out, because sometimes I think people think, you know what, Paul, that's a long game. How does that play out? What happens when we do that?
I just wanted to pick up on one of your last points, Paul, if you don't mind, about service, and I think it's incumbent upon any business owner to deliver a decent and service at all costs, regardless. So I think when you talk about your mission and your vision for your business, that should say, I want to deliver the best possible service I can give to my customer. And by doing so, my customer is more likely to return and continue. So that's one way you can have a more sustainable business, is by delivering a service that people are more than happy with. And the failure to do that is the reasons why people leave. So you can't just negate service, because service is key as far as I'm concerned. So I'm sorry to quash the focus on that, but service is absolutely a prerequisite for any business. All right.
It is a prerequisite, but the business owner, the person on the till is not always the business owner. So your business owner may write a brilliant business plan, and he may have service at the core of his business, if you like, and he may articulate his desire to be. But what kind of a person is he or her? How do they treat those low-paid staff? And what impact does that have on the person who comes into work and is not fed properly, not paid well? And
I understand that. I'm not disputing that particular scenario you've just painted. I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying, the business owner, the principal for any business, has a responsibility in terms of training, coaching, mentoring, to ensure that the service they give is of a standard that everyone is appreciative. But
I want people to spend money with our business, and I want people to give it that 5 minutes you may need to stand in that shop, and just for a minute, just think beyond what you're seeing and still purchase. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Listen, you know something.
We have to find ways to sustain our businesses and get them going, get them to team or something for the training.
Okay, I'm with you on that page. Don't worry about that. I'm with you there. Yeah. But what I'm saying, we as a business, as any of us are business owners, we have a responsibility to deliver a good level of an excellent level of service, because that's how we sustain our business over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best customer you'll ever have is the one you've got today.
Do you know, I must add to this. We're talking very much on the retail side.
Yes.
But thinking on about people that are painters and decorators, let's just use that industry for now. We recognise some of them don't give a good service. They're sloppy with what they do. They turn up when they feel like it, and that gives a bad reputation too. I spoke to someone 2 or 3 years ago who said they wouldn't have anything to do with our community and coming and doing work on his portfolio of properties because he doesn't trust them. They're not respectable, and all the horrible things you could think of. Today, he came to me 2 weeks ago and said, you have changed that because you have pointed me in a direction of some reliable people, and I've now changed my mind. I've changed my focus. Thank you. So it's not just the retail businesses here. It's what we do. It's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's us educating our customers, those potential customers who are going to go and speak about what we do. That's very, very important. So yes, there is training and educating that's needed, but our clients need to be programmed in that way as well. They need to see that we can offer a high quality service the same way any other community can.
Yes. Yeah.
And they have to also understand not every single other community is going to be giving them an excellent service. They have their dodgy people too. So I think that there is a lot of work to do for us to prove ourselves. It's unfortunate, but we have to prove ourselves to these people. And I believe that as part of the shift that is going on, that is happening. I'm going to go back a few more points. We spoke about how we build our foundation. One thing that we've got to be very careful and mindful of as well is that when we're setting our foundation, that we are making sure that we are even registered as HMRC. Do you know how many businesses I've come across and said, are you registered? Registered with who?
Yeah.
HMRC. Oh, no, who's HMRC? We have to be very, very careful.
Licensing, premises. I mean, I can list you hundreds. I'm sure Carlton can as well.
So,
yeah.
Katrina started talking about how she helps small businesses. And what I'm hearing is about fundamental business practice.
Yeah.
Very basic stuff, or what I'm calling basic stuff, which very often the person who can cook good doesn't think about. The person who, he decorated his front room and it looked good, he doesn't think about, and so they don't go through these processes, and that leaks out into bad business. But I don't want to shift away from the customer service. I want to talk, you guys are all talking as business owners. I want you to shift mentality for a second as a client, as someone who's using a service. Because one of the things that we've touched on already, and people talk about already a lot, is what happens when they have a bad experience. Yeah. And I want to know from your point of view, what you consider to be the best practice. What's the best thing that you can do if you walk into Paul Lawrence's business and you see something that's not right? What's the best thing that you can do for Paul's business?
I think that you need to be honest, and you need to respectfully say, actually, this wasn't okay. This is the area where you need to improve. Be honest about that. And then if you can provide support, because a lot of times we are critical and we have no solutions. And so if you're going to be critical of a business, or say, actually, you need to improve in this area, at least provide some suggestions as to how they might be able to improve. And also it's about attitude and mentality when we're addressing it. And sometimes it's not the way you say, it's not what you say, but how you say it. And when we're addressing these issues, we have to do so with some compassion. And sometimes it can be riding like, how do you not see that this is not acceptable? And that's how we approach people. But it's actually stepping back and saying, no, let's address each other from a problem solving, helpful kind of perspective.
I had a situation. Sorry, go on, Carlton.
I was just about to say thank you, but I was just about to say, if the mindset is sometimes as Carol Dweck says, people have two types of mindsets, either a growth mindset or a fixed. So when you have a fixed mindset, you said, well, I mean, I care what you want, so and that's the mindset. I'm not interested. All right. Yeah. Whereas someone who's got a growth mindset says, well, you know what? Thank you for that. I really appreciate your feedback, and maybe that is something we can deal with. But it depends on and we know that you don't want to get into that confrontational situation where someone looks at it as where you just be negative. But actually, we have a responsibility to each other to point things out.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so we need to have a more adoptive of a growth mindset in terms of thinking, how can we improve? How can we collaborate? How can we do better? Rather than saying, well, this is how we do it. If we don't like it, tough. That's the sort of mindset we sometimes do have. I have to, but we have to be more receptive to that, Paul. I think that's probably where I would go with that.
I had an experience yesterday where somebody sent me a video on Instagram and said, could you share it? Sent it in a message. I opened up the video and it panned around a shop, had books and various, and she said, this is a bag, this is a, and I sent her a message and I said, I don't know where this place is. And, I sent her, and we're back and forth, And in the end, she understood. And I said to her, I'm telling you this from a place of love. I'm just trying to be supportive and all this kind of thing. But honestly, and that's how I respond. Because I thought to myself, oh my goodness, COVID, this woman's trying to get her business back up again.
Yeah.
I have no idea where in the country she is, her shop is. And then, she also had an online element to it. No, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's quite funny because just this morning I had an exchange in a group, and one of the gentlemen said he doesn't access Facebook, and I just thought to myself, it's the only right now major free advertising platform for whatever you do. It's free. It don't cost anything. If you're not there, especially in the times of COVID, how are you getting your message out about your business? Yeah. So I think we've looked at very much the elements around understanding the truth about business, because one of the things that I've come across is that a lot of people who are in business, they're sort of in business accidentally.
Mm.
So whether it's, you know, redundancy money, whether it's frustration with the job market, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs because they are frustrated with the job market. They can't get jobs that equal their skills. But what they're not business people. Yeah, they're not business people per se. And there's a guy called Asari Sentil who, you know, me and him talk, and, you know, I'm supposed to see him next week. We talk about business and about understanding the mechanics of business. And a lot of people don't want to do the spreadsheets. They don't want to do the pestles. They don't want to do the business case. You know, Paul, them thing never take too long. Yeah, I want to sell this. No. Yep. And then they don't understand why they do 6 months. They dependent on their family to buy their products, and, you know, work.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question.
The family.
Right? Who do you want to buy your services? Who is your client? How do you address that? Because I don't have a black business. I have a business and I happen to be black. How does that work for you guys?
Well, Paul, I would agree with you. If just as an example, right? Here's a Mama Brown rum cake, named after my mum, by the way.
Is that going to be a sample you're sending us, Carlton?
That's nice.
Is that going to be a sample you're sending us, Carlton?
I'm texting my address as we speak.
Exactly. Me too. Sample.
Don't worry, we'll exchange details after. But we do 6 flavors, from pineapple to coconut to chocolate, etc. Right? So what I'm saying, my customer is a customer who wants to have a good experience of tasting a nice cake.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's my customer. Yeah. Now, you know, as I said, last year, whatever it was, recently, 4.5 million visitors visited Jamaica, for example. They visit Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia. So there's an understanding that, you know, there's an appreciation for authentic Caribbean food. So therefore, my customer is not only people from the African Caribbean diaspora, but it's also anyone who wants to try something authentic. You know, if they want to taste the jerk house. Just so you know.
Paid advert.
Well, Paul, I just want to take the opportunity.
Paul, you better charge him. You better charge him commission for this, you know. You better charge him.
All I'm saying is the customer is the customer, whoever that may be, who you feel that you want to target. From a business perspective, when you're doing your business plan, you have to scope out who you think your customer is.
Yeah.
And then you define that customer. You say, okay, how can I reach that customer now? If my customer is the African Caribbean diaspora,
fair enough.
Where are they operating? Right. Where can I connect with these guys? Or if it's someone else, where can I connect with them? Is it social medias? What type of social media? Is it magazines? Is it media? What type of? So you structure your strategies around your customer and that customer experience and the journey which you think they're going to take.
And can I just add to that? So there's 3 perspectives that I have on this. First is this idea that you choose your customer. You think, okay, this is my strong point. This is the kind of business that I want to launch. And actually, this is the fit. This is the ideal client that I think it will be a fit for. And so actually, there's this joining together of what you're great at and who that fits with. But then when you enter a market, there's always a pivot. So there's always, when you get to the market, you realize actually who I thought the client was perhaps isn't. And so there's this thing that I also think it's great to define your client, but when you're doing that, also think about not only who you want to serve, but who you don't want to serve, because often that's easier. But also when you go into the market will speak to you. And so there's this thing that I also feel about your niche finding you. And when that happens, and when you see people gravitating towards you, pivot, lean into that. Because it's this thing about sometimes we can become so resolute. This is who I want to serve. This is the people that I want to serve. And that's it. You have to watch the market. You can't be building and launching businesses in a silo. You have to be watching what's happening and what's going on and lean into that. And I say that to say this. When I first started my business, I thought it was startups. It isn't. It's actually going back to my corporate heritage. And it was very much leaning into that. And it's also, you know, this thing of, so, you know, I also realized that Black businesses were gravitating to me. I never thought that Black professionals, they weren't in my radar, not that I didn't want to serve them, but then all of a sudden I felt that, you know, these Black professionals that were actually seniors in the business were gravitating towards me. And so it's like, okay, you don't ignore that. and do what you want to do. You kind of look at that and build your business to what is the market opportunity. So it's about having your eyes open, really.
I think that goes both ways, because you know, sometimes, especially when you have small cottage industries, you do define your clientele as the black market, but then there are white people, Asian people who want your services, and I think your advice is lean into that. You know,
lean into it.
Take that as well, and I think that's generally good advice for anybody starting up a business. So in people like Yvonne, what are the mechanisms in place for someone who is, they got a little business, they're okay, they're established, someone like the Water guy, someone like Dr. Chartwell Brown, and they're thinking, well, Africa, what's there for us to start to launch out?
Well, this is the thing. I don't think many people realize how sophisticated parts of the markets are in Africa, and this is there is this lack of education, lack of knowledge, if you like. So I think what people should do is visit. I think that I think it's worth talking to the embassies. They do have chambers of commerce as well, and I think take the opportunity to go on a trade mission. I'm going to be organising one soon, and so that will be, you know, publicised with ADPAC. But I think you can also go to the UK Trade Invest and tell them that you want to trade in a particular country. They can do a survey, do some research for you as to which companies, because I've gone that route before years ago, with Jamaica, in fact, actually, because I wanted to identify particular businesses and I wanted to do it in a very formal way. It cost me about £500, I think, at the time to arrange the meetings. That said, when I got there, I'm having, you know, waiting for people to come to see me at the Pegasus. People did walk in, look at me, walk away, assuming that I would be white. You know, so there are those things that can happen, but that aside, you know, if you're serious about doing it, you know, and talk to people here who are from those countries who might have links with those places as well. You know, there's so many routes in to market. There are many, but if anybody wants any more information, they can contact me.
What about the person who's hearing us here talking? You know, we're talking about moving into places like Africa, but we've been socialized. Very many of us have been socialized to see Africa as a daunting place to be business. You know,
and it's corrupt and all that stuff. Yeah.
What do we say about that?
I think we've been educated to believe this, and it keeps us separate. And I know for myself, the first time I went to Ghana in 1994 it was, and I remember for about 3 days I kept saying, "Oh my God, this is like a big Jamaica. Oh my God, this is like a big Jamaica." That's all I kept saying. I saw the massive highways, and I mean, and obviously Ghana is much more. I mean, the Ghana Mall is all marble now. I mean, today in Accra, I mean, it's gorgeous. But this is 94. I was like, oh my God, this place is amazing. And that was 94, much less now. So it's not none of it is what they tell us. None of it's Tarzan, you know, that Tarzan stuff. It's not true.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think we're a culture that is lazy when it comes to learning, and we often have secondhand knowledge. So I think the first thing is really to educate ourselves on what Africa has to offer and what the opportunities are. And I think secondly is to travel. I know we're in COVID, so we can't really travel now, but I think it broadens your perspective, like go to Africa. I know sometimes that's easier said than done, but it's really having this mentality of continuous learning and educating yourself on the opportunities and going beyond our borders. And I think a lot of it is a mindset thing.
No,
it's 53 countries. Sorry, it's 53 countries. It's a huge continent. It is difficult to know which country am I going to go to. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult to make those decisions, but I think you just have to be a bit brave. And I'm happy to speak to anybody who has an idea. Sorry, Carlton.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a couple of things just to pick up on what you said about COVID. There was a report recently just done by the IMF, and it talked about the economy taking a plunge globally by circa 3%. But in the African subcontinent, in sub-Saharan Africa, it was less than 1%. But with the bounce back, 2021, they're saying the fastest growth area is going to come from the Africa sub-Saharan continent at 6.6% growth. Now, but on the back of that, Katrina talked about learning and understanding what's going on. Some of the fastest growing economies on the planet today are within Africa.
Rwanda,
Ethiopia.
Mm.
If you look at some of these countries, and don't forget Jamaica, in terms of Jamaica's growth for the last 10 years has been exceptional.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we had one of the best stock market positions in the world.
Oh, yes.
So we should not lose sight, Paul, that
Jamaica stock market was at the top.
Yeah, the Africa, the Caribbean, there are great opportunities for growth as a market in itself. It's just about, again, go back to the research, is understanding which economy you think is the most suitable fit for you culturally, socioeconomically, which is a good fit.
Yeah.
For a variety of different reasons, whether it's language, whether it's whatever it is for you.
We need to circumvent we need to circumvent China for manufacturing. You can think, I want people to think much more strategically about getting things manufactured on the continent of Africa. Yes, there are issues with electricity. Yes, there are issues, but it's still possible. But just if you think about it, as opposed to quickly rushing off to think about Alibaba and China, just think differently.
Are there African
and the Caribbean as well.
Are there African equivalents to Alibaba?
There was a guy setting up something. Herman Hess, his name was, in Ghana. He was setting up an African Amazon.
Okay.
So I don't know quite where. I was talking to some white person was telling me the other day that they're now the leader in that, and I said, no, you're not. Herman Hess started that.
Okay, a little bit of research required. Angela,
yes, a bit of research. Yeah, I need to pick that up to see where that is. But yeah, he was just white guy trying to tell me that he's a leader in some. I said, you're not.
I went to Ghana in February to spend some time with one of the businesses that's in Teams, and it was fantastic. What is great to see is that we have a massive shift of people that are going from England and migrating over there. So they have connections with embassies. One of the things I'm going to do too as well, Yvonne, is to be setting up some business stroke pleasurable trips to this particular business in Ghana, where she's got her own holiday resort.
Oh, let's work together. Let's do this together then, because I'm looking for a collaborator for the trade missions.
Great. Well, let's do this. And she's actually going to set up meetings where we can look at how we can transfer import and export. And and she's got a place there where we can stay and all that. So yes, let's definitely do that. But let's remember, we're not going over to a place that is totally isolated. We've got a lot of connections over there, and people that have lived in England and have taken that culture with them, people that have lived in the Caribbean, so they get that understanding. And I found, I've been told so many times that Ghana is a great place. It's just like being in the Caribbean. I totally agree. Yeah. It's somewhere I could see myself living. The people were just amazing, and there was a completely different feel to it than the Caribbean.
Yes.
It felt like home.
Yes.
I think that's
just one thing I want to say to small businesses or emergent businesses. Really seriously think about the markets. Something Angela said just triggered me. In Gambia, there are huge housing estates going up. I mean, as soon as you put them on the market, they're sold off. So soon you will have a whole market in the African countries wanting English products because they're feeling nostalgic.
There's a lot of
there's going to be a huge market in many countries in West Africa. Well, even now I would imagine you could start importing foods because they're going to want them, or products and items, because human nature, and people will want things that they're used to or miss or something like that. So I think people should, maybe I've just given away a business idea again, but story of my life.
But I think that's it. That's very important, because what we see happening is if you go to places like Jamaica, you go to places like St. Lucia, Zambia, all of these countries, you see the Chinese moving in. And there's a certain resentment towards the Chinese. Well, I sort of backed off from that. Yeah, I do know that they're backed by government, and I get that. But I always have to ask myself, what's stopping us from going to countries and establishing business? Yeah. And very often, It's just that fear factor that Katrina
Yes.
spoke about,
Yes.
that misinformation that we have. And
Yes.
they are clearly not listening.
Yes.
You know, on my last trip to Jamaica last year, I was sitting in a car dealership, and the guy who had the appointment before me was a little Chinese guy. When he left, I was talking to the car dealer, and he said, look, that guy just wandered in one day off the street and said, I'm from China, I can get 50 cars to put on your lot.
Oh, Jesus.
Will you take 50 cars from me? And the guy said, well, you know, 50 is a bit much, you know, let's talk chit chat. And that guy had trips planned for Barbados, for Trinidad, for Guyana. He was just hopping around the island, making appointments, saying, I can get cars. His dad doesn't own a car company.
No.
He's just making himself a connection. Yeah, that's all he's doing. He's just a middleman making himself a connection. And instead, I see Jamaicans who are importing cars all the way from China, going through websites where they don't get to see the car before the car turns up. It is what it is, sold as seen. So what I'm saying is there are opportunities in Africa. There are opportunities in the Caribbean. And other people, English people, Chinese people, Asian people,
take them up.
Culturious, the whole strip.
Yeah, I think we have.
The whole strip is Asian. And
I know.
They're complaining.
I just saw a little video. They're in St. Thomas. They're everywhere. The Indians.
I think we have to get out of our comfort zones and have the mindset where actually we can do anything. We can go into any industry that we want to, because I think we find that we stay in the same sort of businesses, and we kind of need to venture out. And I think that's what other cultures do. They're bold and they just step out, and we kind of need to do the same. And if you don't mind, Paul, I just want to address, because it's tied into this, a question from Cameron. She says, what about institutional racism, being a Black person with a business that wants to trade with big established businesses? Big establishments like hospitals and schools. Now, the first thing I would say, you need to approach these organizations, but before you do that, you need to have a clear idea about what it is that you want to offer them, and that needs to be crystal clear. You need to first understand, have a clear idea what you want to offer, actually have the gumption to go out and propose to them, and then you be so good that you are the only option. And one of the ways you do this is you develop your own framework. You don't just say, okay, I'm just going to be another this, Y, and this. You make yourself ungoogleable. So you are the only one that delivers what you deliver in the way you deliver it. You be so excellent that actually you are the only person that they're considering. And so when you approach it like that, you become, I worked in corporate for 14 years, was head of marketing for a £2 billion company by the time I was 30, because you have to be so good that they stop even seeing, they see your color, but it doesn't matter because you are the best person in the room. And that's the mentality that we have to have.
Okay. Can I address that question?
Yeah.
My company set up and all I did was secure government contracts for the whole time I had my limited company to deliver, because startups don't have any money to pay you. So I got my money through regeneration budgets across South London and North. In order to compete, and I've always had locks as well. I've been told that at the time, you're never going to get a contract with those locks. My locks weren't even like this; they were chunky. The way you compete is to have your systems in place. We're back to systems again. You have your systems. I when I started my business, I didn't have any money, but I made sure I got customer first accreditation. So you have your limited company, so that and I had my accounts audited. I didn't need to, but I did. So when you want to work with local government, central government, and NHS, those big agencies, make sure that all your ducks in a row, and all your business is transferable, transparent. Yes. So have your accounts audited. I would, because like you say, Black racism, whatever it is, you need to, as Katrina said, you need to set yourself above. But the thing that lets us down, I think, more than anything, because nothing's really new. Yes, of course, you bring to the way you do it is going to be unique to you. But I mean, you're not going to be that special because there's nothing brand new in the world. But what is important though, as a Black person, is that you work with integrity, and you have all your systems, all your policies in place, everything, environment, equality, you name it. Make sure you have them all, and make sure your accounts are tip-top shape. You can account for every penny that you get from government, and over deliver. We do anyway. You know.
The only thing I would add to that is this: is that racism is real, and so don't feel knocked down. Don't feel defeated.
Yeah, exactly.
At the first time of showing, you get kicked back, because we all know racism is real. It's not going anywhere. No. So we have to, and I don't want to say get past it, because I have no intention of getting past it. But what we have to do, we have to sort of factor that in. Yeah, we have to factor that into our business. You know, I've been struggling with one single issue since I started my business, and it's a banking issue. And every time I approach a bank, they tell me, we don't do banking with organizations like yours. And when I say to them, but Ticketmaster does banking with you, the room goes silent.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I didn't give up. I keep going, and we keep going. And that's very much what I like people to do. Stop thinking that, the system is against me. Yeah, it is against me. But
you're still, there's ways.
Curve.
Yes, there's ways.
Part and parcel of sticking with the curve is what Yvonne mentioned about doing things right. But, you know, with just a couple of minutes, we're going to try and wrap up. But I want to talk to Angie and Carlton about other great things they can do to override. And Angie, I'm going to ask you to talk about networking with other like-minded businesses, because this is why you know, and I'll say this in any forum, team changed my business completely. Yep, I've been in IT for many, many, many years. When I decided on creating Just Tickets, I did it to the best of my ability, but it was nowhere near good enough. Yep. I went to a dinner dance that team had and a conference day up in Coventry last year. Was it last year or the year before? It was last year indeed. And I met other team members. We had dinner, we chatted. And at the end of the evening, a gentleman said to me, Paul, what are your major pain points? The guy don't know me from nowhere. He just asked me that question. And Mark, thank you, because I sat down, I spoke to Mark, and he said, get back to me, we can sort it out. And that took my business a whole 360 degree. And so networking, I want Angie, talk to me more why you set up Team and why you think Team has been so successful.
I set it up because 6 years ago, I looked around and I didn't see many Black businesses, not reputable ones. Yes, I went to the carnival and I went to the odd fair where you saw people with stalls, but there was nothing more than that. And these were people that were probably buying things to make a quick buck. It was more important for me to raise the profiles of the Black business owners out there. I came across funeral directors that I didn't even realize were even there. And I decided to make it my mission to go and have a look and see what was out there to bring them to the top and get those profiles raised. In the meantime, I recognized also that having had 3 exhibitions to raise the profiles of these Black business owners, I recognized there was this lack of business acumen. And therefore, I shifted the way that I was doing the networking and made it more in line with business education, as well as bringing people together, working together, collaborating, sharing ideas, and bringing good, skilled people together that can support each other. And that's the reason why I did what I did. It's growing so much today that we're well over 100 people that are in the Teams Global. And to be honest with you, I'm picky. I will admit I'm picky. I can go out there and I could get loads of businesses in, but I'm very, very serious about what I'm doing. And in order to take people on this journey, they have to be serious. They have to want to learn. They have to understand that they're going to come to these times when they don't know everything, and learn that they've got to appreciate to be advised. And that's what's happening with Teams. It's growing, and I don't have to do much work now. It's more so by people saying, you know, recommendations.
Like
and that's
how
what's
I've
happening.
recommended Marshall and Brown.
Absolutely, absolutely. And who knows, Yvonne, Katrina, we may end up collaborating and doing something to support. We have to stick together. It's mutual support. It isn't about what I can get. It is about what can I do for you. That's the whole thing. And if I can get people like yourselves to come towards and let's get together, then let's do this. Let's do this. It's our time. I don't know what more time we want. Yeah. Now is the time. Let's move.
Yvonne, you want to take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit more about your business, what you can do and how you can help people?
Yeah, I mean, I really am interested in international trade. I've kind of shifted away from. I've had 20 years in this thing, and I purposefully, 2012, decided to focus more on international work. And I'm really keen to support people who want to work internationally. So in that regard, I am developing programs at the moment to facilitate that. But in the meantime, I'm available on a one-to-one if people want to discuss.
Is this import and export stuff?
Yeah, any aspect of it, to be fair. Yeah.
Good, because originally when I started my business, the idea was about depositing the website for Nigeria and Jamaica, and the UK was just a testing ground where we were going to test to see how robust the coding was and everything with a look. So absolutely, I'm looking to move it and shift it out into that because it's a duplicated site. Dr. Carlton Brown, what would you be saying to someone who's been listening to this call today and they're really thinking, you know what, I've gone to the Marshall & Brown website, I've seen the quality of their stuff, how do I get there? What would you be saying to them?
Like I started off at the beginning of saying, it's about what is it that you want to do? What's your vision for your business to start with? What's your vision and your mission? And as I said, Marshall & Brown, we say that we're the purveyors of fine Jamaican fare. So what we believe it's the best of Jamaican fare. So what does the best mean? So we looked at our supply chain. So we found suppliers who could deliver the products, which not only were quality on a timely basis, but they also had the relevant accreditations to be able to export at the right standard. So that's one thing. So looking at the supply chain. From a marketing perspective and branding, I spent time working with different designers and spending time looking at how to create packaging and branding that was conducive to sit on any shelf in any supermarket or department store in the UK, as far as I was concerned. And it had to be at that sort of level. So we looked at the marketing. And thirdly, do your research. Don't just decide, well, I'm going to get up in the morning and in Jamaica we say, well, we're going to start a fenke kind of business. We want to do something which is, you want to do something which is properly constructed. Yeah. It's well researched, both from a macro perspective and a micro perspective, that you looked at the marketing, you looked at the finance, you looked at the consumer, you've considered all those things, both the risk and the opportunities in all of those areas, and said, right, so that's what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And go back to the strategy, have a strategy. But fundamentally, take action. Once you've decided on something, and don't be afraid to change, as Katrina said. Don't be afraid to be flexible. If things are not working the right way, adapt your strategy slightly.
Absolutely.
And it might be slightly nuanced to what you thought it was going to be in the beginning, but it doesn't matter. Yes. Think about, Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. And think about, where do you want to go? Where is your destination? So for me, be clear about what you want. How do you want to get there? And have a strategy for delivering that outcome, but make sure that whatever you do, it's at the standard that you think it's for all customers, and anyone would want to buy this product or service because of the standard that I've set.
Yes.
Katrina, what's your words of wisdom? And by the way, guys, to all four of you, please, I've tried to put some of your details into the talk. Please try and put it there. People are crying out for them. And I do take commission on anybody who takes your services going forward for the next 50 years. Katrina, what's your words for all the people who are out there and they're getting this free consultation from you? What's the words of encouragement and support, and what should they be looking?
I would say the higher you want to go, the deeper your roots must be. So you have to build on a firm foundation. That is absolutely strategy. I'm going to leave you with something very, very practical. Everything I do is based on my 6P framework. 6 fundamental things that you need to look at to build a sustainable business. The first one is be clear on your purpose and your goals. Number 2, be clear on what you're selling. So many people, if you ask them what they're selling, what their service is, they struggle to define it. Be absolutely clear on what your product is and what you're offering. Number 3, people. People are the principal thing. Don't do this thing alone. Think about who you need on your A team, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You need to think about number 4, promotion, because you can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you don't know how to promote it, it's going to fail. Number 5 is processes, and we've spoken so much about that. And number 6 is profit. So how are you going to make money today, but also in the future? How are you going to generate reoccurring profit for your business? So 6 fundamental things that you need to be thinking about. And so often the reason businesses fail is because one or more of those things are missing.
And you know what? Just while you guys were all talking, I was just thinking to myself, we're going to have a B to this. Yeah. There's got to be a part 2 to this. I know one of you has a very important day today and can't stay much longer. So I really want to thank you guys for joining us today. But look, I think to anybody who's out there, I think the most important thing that I've heard from today is around this willingness to learn, this willingness to grow. Yeah. Wherever you are with your business, you may be an expert in cooking, but you're not necessarily an expert in business, in running a business. And so you need to get that information. You need to learn. You need to make sure that you're within the legal frameworks, because your business will collapse right underneath you. Just because you haven't, a single form, which don't cost nothing, but you just didn't do it. So you have to have that growth mindset that Katrina talked about. You have to be willing to take mentorship. You have to network. You have to have focus. You have to understand exactly what your product is. And you have to know 2 things. And I didn't know this, but I'm going to thank you guys because I'm writing notes. 1, you need to know who you plan to sell to. And you kind of need to know who you don't plan to sell to as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of learning for me today as well. And you know what? I'm definitely cheating when it comes to these Zoom sessions, because people may think I do it for them. Actually, I'm gaining so much for myself. So, these are fundamental stuff. And I'm going to hold you guys and say, I'd really love you guys to come back. Yvonne, I need to be expanded into Africa. I need to I hear about these trade missions, and I never seem to get the email more than a day after.
I'm going to organize. I want to organize. I mean, I've been on a few, but I've never organized one. But I've been tasked to organize one. So yeah, I'm looking for partners. So yeah, well, you might as well jump on that one. But I can talk to you one-to-one anyway. There is a process. There are several different processes, but I will speak with you one-on-one.
Without doubt.
I'm definitely interested as well. The trade mission to Africa.
And I think if we can somehow manage to get it into Ghana, Angela, and then what we can do, we can take some of the rum cake with us.
Oh yeah, they'd love it. They would love it. Can you imagine that in Accra Mall, having a shop in Accra Mall?
And we just tied up the whole thing. Get into duty free.
Any African country I've been to, you hear reggae music blaring.
Yes.
Anything Jamaican, Bob Marley made that possible.
And I think the last thing I'd like to say is this. With all the stuff that we talk about, the negatives, we also have to understand, and if you're from the Caribbean, Jamaica, wherever, we have a very strong brand already.
Yes, you do.
You talk about brand Jamaica, you talk about places like Barbados, Trinidad. We have good brands, we have good reputations. We do. And the last thing I'd like to say is this. I wasn't aware that we did bad customer service until I came to the UK, because back home in Jamaica, if you did bad customer service, your business went out of business.
Absolutely.
It was as simple and straightforward as that.
Absolutely.
You just weren't in business. So look, guys, I think the future is bright for young Black businesses. Yes, there is racism, but what we're going to do, we're going to lean into it. I'm using that phrase for the rest of the time.
Can I just say I want to just add 2 more points that we mustn't forget either.
Go right ahead.
Don't be scared to invest.
Yes.
Don't be scared to invest. And reputation. Think about how you are perceived because sometimes what you perceive of yourself isn't a perception of someone else. So there are two clear things I think we need to add to the great points that have been mentioned today.
Yvonne, you have two more?
I did. It came out of my head when I was listening to.
Dr. Carlton, bro, you have two more?
As I said, think about what you want to do and then take the action. There's so many people what live on someday island. Someday I'll do it. Someday I'll do that. But if you're serious about what you do, take some steps, because for every action we know there's a reaction, right? So think about what you do. Try, you know, and we say try, when I say Paul, try a thing, I don't mean it in a negative way.
I know exactly what you mean, sir.
Yeah.
And I think the thing I'd like to say is don't let racism, the fact that racism does exist, don't let that be your hindrance. You know, please don't think I can't do this because, or I can't do that because. You make your appointments, do your market research, do everything you need to do, and as Katrina said, you do your best, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Focus on your outcomes. Focus on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. What you want to deliver. Forget anything else around what's going on around you. Forget the noise. What is it that you want to achieve, and work on that daily.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Look, I'm gonna have to wrap up now, but I'm gonna make sure I book you guys for another session, because there's so much more that we could explore in this conversation. And you know what? Thank you guys for being such good guests.
Thank you.
Like I keep saying, every single week, I seem very blessed. I always get guests who know more than me, and so I always leave knowing more. And it's a great pleasure doing this, and you know, the contribution to our community, because now I'm at a stage where I can talk about the feedback that I've been getting of these sessions. This is not week 2 anymore. I've lost count of what week this is, and the feedback that I've been getting is that these sessions are listened to. They're really, really liked, and people appreciate it. So what I always say every week, if you have not already done so, please put your details in the Facebook trend. In a couple of hours, I will have uploaded this to YouTube, and I'll swap the links around, and then we'll have the YouTube link which you can share. People go to my YouTube channel, which is People Talk with Paul Lawrence. Subscribe. Let's build this. Let's get this whole thing going. Let's create a resource for our young Black businesses who are struggling, who are trying to find the Yvonnes of this world, the Katrinas, you know, trying to find the role models, the Carlton Browns, and you know, the great networking that team provides. Let's lump them into one place. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Look, we're talking about boycotts. Not interested. Don't talk to me about boycotts. Talk to me about support. Talk to me about support. Because if we support our businesses strongly enough, you won't need to boycott Sainsbury's, because you have Browns next door that you can walk into, and you can be able to do that. So let's.
And you will understand why the planting is a penny more, because because we have to buy the planting from people who are selling it to us dearer. So stop complaining. You have to pay 1 cent more for the planting in the black man shop. And the reason why the planting them are turned black is because you keep passing it and going into the Asian man shop and buying feed planting.
Planting is important.
Yes, I said it. Bite me. I said it.
Got to go. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting us.